Welcome to the Counter Narrative Podcast, a show designed to change the way we talk and think about education. By sharing stories of successes and triumphs, we aim to challenge the dominant narrative that often negatively portrays our disenfranchised populations. I'm your host, Charles Williams, an educator for 15 years, a current school principal in Chicago, and an educational consultant. Let's get started. This episode is a Pause to Ponder segment. These bi-weekly sessions will allow me to share with you my personal thoughts and reflections on a wide spectrum of topics as they relate to education. It is my hope that you will be able to take something from these segments and apply it in a meaningful way as you continue to do amazing work. Remember, while we all have different roles, we all have a single job: educating our students. Years ago, when I was in high school, I was asked to deliver a speech at our city's annual MLK Day celebration. While I cannot recall everything that I said, I can vividly recall sharing that we have yet to realize King's dream, and for that, we still have work to do. It is my hope that this episode will honor Dr. King by examining and sharing some of his words in the context of America today. The events that unfolded last week at our nation's capital served as a stark reminder that, despite the apparent progress we have made as a country towards racial equity, there is still much that needs to be done. Now, I must be honest with you when I share that I was deeply troubled by the siege of the Capitol building. Not so much by the actions of those who stormed the building, but by the inaction of those who were present. We witnessed those who were tasked with protecting the building, granting access through erected barricades. We witnessed those who were employed to stop the rioters taking selfies and wishing them well. We witnessed the president express his love and gratitude for those who ultimately killed an officer who attempted to do his job. We witnessed none of this, however, during the largely peaceful Black Lives Matter protests during the months following the murder of George Floyd. Unlike those who are being charged mainly with disorderly conduct and unlawful entry, charges which carry minimal prison time, many of those who participated in the BLM protests, not riots, but protests, have been charged with rioting, aggravated assault, and even assisting a criminal street gang. Quote, "Everything that we see is a shadow cast by that which we do not see." We witnessed a gross injustice, one that revealed an ugly truth that has been lurking within America for centuries, one that has forced to mask itself with system and policies, one that seemingly became socially unacceptable. I truly believe that this was part that bothered me the most. You see, I had for the most part allowed myself to believe that we were somehow conquering racism, that the collective voices of those who have so long been oppressed were finally loud enough to reverberate off the Liberty Bell. But I was wrong, and it hurt. And it made me question, what's the point? We have been marching and protesting and strategizing and articulating and so much more for so long. But for what? To be told that some people in this country can riot because they didn't get what they wanted, but we can't ask for an end to senseless police killings? It made me question the work that we are trying to do in our schools. What good is it to provide our students with knowledge and skills? In short, the cultural capital needed to operate in a larger society, when it is painfully obvious that their worth will often be valued less than their peers? Why do we continue to push a narrative that our students can and should pursue dreams of excellence when experience has reminded us time and time again that they will be interrupted? Quote, We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. As the fog of anger lifted and the clouds of despair rolled away, there emerged a glimmer of hope. I slowly realized that this was not the first, nor will it be the last time that such blatant hypocrisy was displayed as a reminder of our status in this country. And yet, we still exist. Recently, I stumbled across an idea, whether it was written in an article or voiced in a podcast, I don't remember, but the concept was one that resonated with some truth for me. In essence, the statement was that those who hold racist ideologies are so angry and full of hatred because, as Dr. King pointed out during his 1967 address to students at Stanford, where he discussed the other America, the logical conclusion to racism is genocide. And yet, we still exist. But we must do more than merely exist. We must remain steadfast in our pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. We must build up our communities and develop wealth. We must improve the quality of our lives through healthcare. We must educate ourselves. Quote, "Change does not roll in on the wheels of inevitability, but comes through continuous struggle." And with those words ringing in my ears, I grew ashamed of my earlier sentiments. We must not, we cannot give up on educating our children. We must equip them with the tools necessary to consistently build up in a world that will continuously destroy. We must allow them to develop the instruments needed to navigate both Americas, for if we are not careful, they will be left without a land of their own. We must help them to craft the lenses to see both the harsh realities that lie in front of them and the truths hidden beneath. As educators, this is our sacred duty. Therefore, I urge you today, on Dr. King's actual birthday, that you do what is necessary to help his dream become a reality. Will you commit yourself to delivering culturally responsive lessons, embracing the uniqueness of all of your students? Will you dedicate yourself to becoming an anti-racist, a process that requires consistent self-reflection and regulation? Will you? I know that this episode may have offended some listeners, and I know that it may have made some feel uncomfortable. Heck, I know that I may have even cost some followers. But you know what? That's okay. You see, I consider launching this episode with the typical prefaces, should my message be considered controversial. I considered implementing politically correct languages to appear unthreatening. I considered using rhetorical devices intended to lessen the intensity of my message so that it might be more appealing to those it targeted. I considered. But then I considered Ferguson, Tulsa, and Rosewood. I considered Arbery, Taylor, and McDonald. Quote, "There comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor political, nor popular, but he must make it because his conscience tells him it is right." Until next time. I want to thank you for listening to the Counter Narrative Podcast. If you like what you're hearing, please be sure to like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. You can also follow the show on Twitter at the CN Podcast and the host at _CW Consulting. Take care.